We only have $700 and a couple $100 to live off of, and can we just give you $300 now and give you the other 700 in a few months? He said, nope. He says, I'll take all $700 now because I'll probably never see the other three. So we gave it to him. We had to have it.
Yeah.
Gave it to the silk screener. Instantly, I picked up the phone. I called the bottler guy and I said, instead of the 100,000 bottles we wanted, how about a $10,000 sample order? I pulled out of my pocket 12 checks, put them right in front of them like that. I said, there's your first 12 customers. They've already paid for the product. Fill your name in there. It's already been done. He said, oh my God, I've never heard a presentation like this.
Yeah.
He said, well, okay, I'll give you a shot. I said, but you better be here tomorrow morning, right? Or you better be here after the products arrive. Excuse me. You better be here after the products arrive and work with my salesman till you sell it. And we were really hard up. It's retailing for $37.95, and of course, the average tequila is now a little over $10. I mean, over $5. The more expensive one is maybe 14, 15 bucks. Guys, you'll never do more than 20,000 cases a year. So we dropped Jim Beam and went with Seagram's. Seagram's built it after a couple of years up to about 50,000 cases a year. We thought we could do better. So we bought them out of their contract and took it over ourselves. How much have I spent helping out the homeless? Millions of dollars. I didn't really spend that money. I invested that money in the future of our nation and the future of my children and their future. And that's what we do. Success unshared is failure.
And it all started with a dime. Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
John Paul DeJoria, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story and our passion is to help them tell it. So with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today. And then we want to talk about this amazing book that you've written that's being released pretty soon and the title I absolutely love, Success Not Shared is Failure. I think that is the coolest title on the planet. You got to be one of the coolest guys on the planet. Thank you so much for being here.
Very kind. You're welcome.
Appreciate you, buddy. So where were you born?
Los Angeles, California.
Did you grow up there?
Yep, sure did. First generation American. My mom was an immigrant from Greece, and my brother and my father, same thing, but from Italy. And we grew up in LA. It was it was a cool town in those days. It was really good. Not like it is today. It was a little different.
Yeah, it's changed a little bit.
Definitely.
So what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
We didn't know we had nothing, and we thought we had everything. We had no idea. We loved LA. We didn't know any better. We thought everything around there was great. There were even days, and this was now the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, that the smog was so bad, the skies would be black, and you would actually tear. Your eyes would actually tear. But we thought that was just part of growing up, period. We didn't know how bad it was for you. And those were the days where you burnt your own trash around back. They had the can they came by from metals, but all your trash you put in an incinerator, you burnt it. And of course, it didn't help the skies any at all.
Yeah, no, didn't help the black thing, right? Yeah,
exactly.
The air being black. So as you were growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
My mother, beyond any question of doubt. My dad was a deadbeat dad, left by the time I was 2 years old. Mom struggled, but she was always positive. I love to tell the story about growing up with my mom. and what an influence she was. We had nothing, but didn't know we had nothing. We had no TV set. That I think they were just invented in the late 40s there, and we didn't get one until the 50s sometimes. Little teeny black and white one. But my mom was so cool that occasionally, even when we were in foster care, she got really, really sick. So from the age of about 5 till 9.5 years old, we were in foster care, my brother and I, from Sunday night until Friday night after school. And we were lucky, home with mom most weekends long. But she would always have there a little teeny piece, for example, of filet mignon steak, maybe 2 ounces at the most. And she would cut it in three and tell my brothers and I, this is filet mignon steak. And boys, this is what the rich people eat. And we eat just like the rich people. So we thought that was great. Whatever rich people are, that's wonderful. We eat just
Right.
like they do. And in those days, caviar was very inexpensive. She even brought home some caviar one day, a little bit, and we tasted it all. She said, boys, this is also what the rich people eat, caviar. And we tasted. It wasn't that, shall we say, exciting for us as young kids. But still, it was, hey, I guess that's what the rich people eat. So we had a really cool mom growing up. But in my day, unlike today, we had an ice box where the guy would come by, I think for a quarter once and bring a big block of ice and put it in our ice box. We had the fish man. He'd go up the street ringing a bell, fish, fish. And then we had the rag man who would blow a little horn. And it's like you would buy a rag for, oh, let's say a penny. They didn't have paper towels in those days, and they were clean, of course. Or you would sell him, I think it was 3 for a penny, or you would buy 1 for a penny. So he always had those, they was cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and reselling. It was an interesting time growing up.
What was the most important thing you learned from your mother growing up?
Be positive. My mom was
Yeah.
a very, very positive person, and she was very positive. And if something wasn't quite right, she'd go, boys, it'll eventually come right, and we'll learn along the way. There, I learned that. Also, one of the big things I learned from my mom was the power of giving back. And I love to tell the story. When I was about 6 years old, my brother and I went to downtown LA Christmas time with my mom. And my mom gave us each a dime. Now, downtown LA at Christmas time when I was young, they had the May Company, the Bullocks, all these great stores there. And they would have like little trains going in circles, puppet shows, all kinds of cool things for kids. We were the luckiest kids in the world. So she gave us a dime, a little dime one day, and said, boys, I want you to hold on to these together, walk over and together put that dime in the bucket, the red bucket of the man ringing the bell. We did. Went back and said, Mom, why did we do that? It's a dime. In my day, that was 2 soda pops or 3 candy bars, right? It was a dime. And Mom said to us, boys, that is a Salvation Army. There are people that have no food and no place to stay, and they help take care of them for food and a place to stay. Boys, we could only afford a dime this year, but it's important to know in life, there'll always be people who need something more than you ever do. And always try and give back in any way you can, even with your time. And she said, with my time, and I don't have a lot of it, I do spend a few hours a week going out and try to collect money for the Red Cross and turn it over to them. That was my way of helping. And we could afford a dime, and that's why we put it in. And I never forgot that.
What a great woman.
Oh, the wonderful mom.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So growing up, did you play any sports?
Well, I played sports, but in high school.
Yeah.
Gymnastics. I was in
Okay.
gymnastics. My event was the pommel horse, the side horse, and I made the varsity team, so that was pretty cool.
That took some strength.
Oh yeah.
You got to have some strength to do that.
Well,
That's
but
awesome.
you learn, yeah, I learned a lot of practice too. And some of
Yeah.
the things I could do then, believe it or not, I can still do now, many, many years later, but only a couple of things, not all.
That's cool. In high school, did you have a favorite subject?
Yeah, auto shop. My
Oh,
favorite
there
shop.
you go.
Even built my first car in auto shop because we had no money for a car. So my brother bought our first clunker for us, but I had to rebuild the whole thing, and I did an auto shop. Rebuilt the engine. It was a Ford Flathead, and we did. I just loved auto shop. I loved playing with cars. That was my favorite subject. My second, I think, was more than likely math because I was really good at math, and I could do a lot of things quickly there.
Did you have a favorite teacher in high school?
Sure did. And my favorite teacher in high school was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful lady. And Miss Crowley was her name. She was just a super nice lady. And Miss Bloomberg was another one. They're just cool people. I just liked them.
Isn't it amazing how teachers can grab you and just kind of change your life
Well, there
just by
was
their
one.
influence?
Oh yeah, true. But there was one who tried to influence the whole class around me and my friend Michelle, but he didn't do very good. It was the 11th grade. It was business class with Mr. Wax, W-A-C-H. And Michelle brought him, my buddy Michelle brought him to my 50th birthday party. She found him and she brought him there. We reminded him of what happened. Now, Michelle Gilliam was her name. She was a pal of mine. She sat right behind me. So we would pass notes, still like behind me, I go pass her a note. She'd write it, tap me back, and I get the note back. So Mr. Wax intercepted the note once and he read it to the class. It was something stupid. Like, Michelle, I think Darlene Googler and Ronnie are going study now. Hey, you want to meet at Winchell's after school for a Coke? Something really stupid, right? He read it to the whole class and said, class, Michelle Gilliam and this Johnny DeJoria, they call me Johnny these days, will never amount to anything. We're doing a business class to learn a little bit about business, right? And what are they doing? They're passing notes. Don't hang out with these guys, right?
Wow.
Well, but here's the rest of the story. So I go into the Navy right after high school and spend a couple of years on the USS Hornet aircraft carrier, out of touch. I get back to Los Angeles and I'm with my buddies there. Hey, JP, how's it going? Hey, how about your good friend, Michelle? She did really good. I said, well, what did Michelle do? I had no idea. Well, Michelle Gillian was no longer Michelle Gillian. She was Michelle Phillips of the Mamas and Papas.
Oh, my goodness.
So when she brought Mr. Wax to the restaurant that we were at, we reminded him of the situation. He said, I don't think that happened. I said, both there. And by the way, we paid no attention to you whatsoever on what you said.
That's
and
right.
Okay. We turned out.
That's right. If anything, it was motivation, right?
That's right. And we turned out okay. We just let it go in one or out the other. But the high school
love that.
was a good one.
So after high school, you decided to join the Navy. What made you decide to do that?
Well, I actually joined the Navy a few months prior to graduating high school.
Okay.
When
Okay.
17 years old, you could join the Navy if you were in high school in your senior year, in the Naval Reserves there at Elysian Park in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Now, why did I join? A couple of reasons. One, my brother was in the Navy. It was influence. Number two, you got a whole uniform and a bag of uniforms to wear, and they gave us, I think it was like $19 a month for being in the reserve. So it was extra money at the time, and we felt really good. And I knew I wanted to go into the military when I got out of the Navy. I didn't have the grades for a scholarship or the money to go to college. So I said, let's go in the Navy. See the world's a good time to do it. And that's what I did.
What's the single most important thing you learned being serving in the Navy?
Great question to ask. In fact, it was asked of me also. And when I received the Lone Sailor Award in Washington, D.C., I said the one sentence, and it was this: the Navy took ordinary people like myself, but taught us together as a team to achieve extraordinary results. And that was the biggest thing I learned in the Navy. Other than I saw the world, the Pacific Ocean, and Hong Kong, and the Philippines, and Hawaii, and just all those great areas down there. I had a good time.
So when you decided to leave the Navy, number one, why did you leave? And number two, where did you go?
My tour of duty for my obligation for full-time duty in the Navy was up. Then I went into standby reserves. I immediately started looking for a great job. First job I had was driving a tow truck, and I liked to drive, so that was pretty cool. But it didn't last long. It wasn't for me. So I had a variety of jobs. And then all of a sudden I found what I thought would be my niche a short time later, and that was selling Collier's Encyclopedia door to door on commission only.
Wow.
It was a tough job, but I thought it'd be great. Get the educational field. You could wear a suit. And I bought a suit when I was in Hong Kong, I think for $20. You got a custom-made suit for you in those days. So I had a suit to wear.
That's awesome. What's the single most important thing you learned selling door to door, selling encyclopedias door to door?
The biggest thing I learned on that time around in my life was how to overcome rejection. When you're in training class, you make no money. When you're in the field selling encyclopedias, it's commission only. You make no more money. But they told me in class, they said, looky, money of you will only last 3.5 days. That's the average life of an encyclopedia salesman on commission only. They said, but some of you will do this. You will overcome rejection. You'll have doors closed politely or maybe not politely on your face, But on door number 50, you have to be just as excited and enthusiastic as door number 1.
Right.
Well, for me, I believed them. Well, for me, it was door number 100 and something, right? But
Yeah.
I was. I believe what they said. I
Wow.
eventually made a sale. And that first year in door-to-door sales, I made about $12,000. That's what in the mid 1960 the vice president of a bank made. And
Oh my goodness.
I lasted 3.5 years. And I was just tired knocking door to door and looked for something else.
So it
But
was
that was
sell or starve, basically, right? Close or starve.
oh, yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
know,
It was
have a
almost like you had the boats burned and you had to make this work.
great experience. And of course, there were a lot of failures. When you
Yeah.
first start giving a presentation that you memorize, you're doing it okay, but not really so good.
Yeah.
After a while, when you keep doing it over and over again, you're doing it better. And
Yeah.
when you find things you're not doing right or people are not letting you in, you see how to do that better. Kind of a little bit like that failure was really an education,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah. And you're either going to succeed or learn, right?
that's
It's why
correct.
you take risks in life,
Yep.
right? And the
That's
best thing that you just shared with us was the fact that you rehearsed it. It was repetition. You
that's
got
correct.
it down, and then you went out there and you applied it, and some of it worked and some of it didn't, and you made minor adjustments and you figured out a way to make it work. That's one of the
That's
most brilliant things that people need to learn
and
from
hard
you and from your life.
and hard, Mike. It's not easy. It's
Yeah.
not easy.
Well,
But you learn
the thing, if it's worth it, it usually isn't easy, right?
that's right. Well, we say the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people, or one of the good reasons are that the successful people do all the things the unsuccessful people don't want to do,
Yeah.
like door to door when they're closing your face and things like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. So after you leave, so you decide to leave encyclopedia sales.
Yep,
What
correct.
what made that happen and where did you go?
Well, I just got tired of it. It was commission only, and
Yeah.
after so many, and you're during the day making appointments, calling on people at night, and working many times on Saturdays. It was just a whole lot. I wanted something different. So I went out there to see what is my calling in earth.
Mhm.
And in a matter of a couple of years, I worked for AB Dick in business machines. I worked for
Mhm.
7 business machines. I worked for Dictaphone. I worked for medical equipment sales and laundry. I did a variety of things to
Mhm.
try and find my niche. And then the big one happened. I went to work and I was 26 years old for Time Inc. as their
Yeah.
circulation manager of Time, Fortune, Sports Illustrated magazines in Los
Right.
Angeles. What I basically did was run a giant boiler room with 50 people, making phone calls, getting new subscriptions, or trying to renew their own subscription there.
Sure.
Anyways, so I got tired of it after a while. So I went to my boss, the vice president. I said, this is great, but I don't want to do this forever. What does it take to become a vice president? And they said, you're 26 years old. You have
Mhm.
no college degree. Come back and ask me that question when you're 35. That was it. I realized I didn't want to do it anymore. So I met this gentleman named John Capra, who's been my best friend of over 50 years now. He
Mhm.
was an employment counselor, and he sent me on a variety of jobs to try out. Some of them I've already mentioned. Anyways, then he said to me one day, JP, there's this company in the professional beauty industry, and they're hiring. You're not going to make a lot of money to start with, but JP, it's wide open on how far you could go. And he was right. I started at $650 a month salary and a $125 car allowance. Barely made it. I was making more than that before that.
Yeah.
However, he was 100% right because within 1.5 years, I became their national manager of 2 divisions and learned
Awesome.
about the beauty industry. He was right.
Awesome. What was your favorite thing about that first job in the beauty industry?
Oh, I was excited to be in the beauty industry, not in these other industries. We were calling on hairdressers and people in the
Yeah.
hairdressing industry as a professional line. And I loved hairdressers. They were fun people, they were
Yeah.
exciting people, and I could grow. And that's what was really great. I could just grow right up the line based on my ability and my achievements. And that was fabulous.
So was that in Los Angeles?
In Los Angeles, exactly. It was in LA at that time.
Awesome. So how long were you with that company?
I was with Rejection for about 4.5 years, and they fired me. The reason they fired me was I was their national manager of chain salons and scientific schools, and
Yeah.
they fired me because I wasn't their type of a corporate executive. I would complain about things, for example, like, guys, you have this little room 12 by 12 with a bunch of little baby marmoset monkeys in it, and you're testing on them. We make
Mhm.
hair products. Why are you, this is stupid. Why are we
Sure.
doing You're pouring stuff in their eyes is crazy. And by
Right.
the way, I wanted to take them for a walk. They wouldn't let me. And there was just a little dinky window of
Mhm.
maybe a foot wide that had a hallway on the other side. So they couldn't even look outside and see anything.
Oh.
And they said, JP, we do it because we are the scientific approach. Redken, the scientific approach to hairdressing, right?
Mhm.
Says, look good. I said, but it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Anyways, so they said, JP, be along with the corporation. That's what we want to do. And I went to the head of the corporation. So a couple weeks later, I came back, I guess that when I came back again, I said, guys, I don't think we should be doing this. I mean, once again, because it's doing nothing. I know it makes us supposedly look good, but I don't think it really does. And they had it with me. They said, JP, look, we've already told you, and you're just not our kind of manager. In fact, a lot of times when people are on the road for a week
Mhm.
or two, you call them back, where if they stayed out for one more week, it would have saved us money. I said, yes, but they're married. They have kids. Of course, I'm
Mhm.
going to bring them back.
Right.
They've too long. JP, it's just not going to work out. And they were kind to me. They said, we'll let you have both your secretaries for 3 weeks, give you a nice severance pay. But I'll never forget their word, JP, why don't you go out and sell jets or something, make a whole lot of money, or big yachts or something, but we wish you the best of luck. And they were nice to me.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, I had made a little bit of history in the professional beauty industry. So I was hired in the professional beauty industry by another company called Syntex. They had
Mhm.
just big pharmaceutical company. They had just purchased Firmadol in the
Mhm.
professional beauty industry. Wasn't that big, about 8 million a year, but they hired me to train their sales force, educational force, and their middle management force in sales training and marketing,
Mhm.
which I did. I was there for about a year, and then they fired me. Now, in the 1 year I was there, they grew, but there's a story as to why. They're going to tell you about fate in a minute.
Okay.
But they grew the 1 year I was with them from 8 million a year to 12 million a year, like that. And I had a lot to do with that. But they
Mhm.
said, JP, you're not one of us. The management of the company, the president, and they were of a particular ethnic faith that I was a different ethnic faith, right? Anyways, but JP, we go to temple on the weekends, we play canasta on Sundays, and you're at some loving in Griffith Park, listening to bongo music or whatever. You hang out with us, right? You never do. You're not one of us. We got to let you go.
Mm.
Today, I could still become a millionaire, because they're discriminating. Anyways, I said, okay, it's time for me to go. Then another company in the beauty industry hired me, another little one called Institute of Trichology. They
Mhm.
were really a product company, and they made some pretty good products called Tri.
Mhm.
That lasted a little bit over a year. And then they came and they fired me. And I'll never forget when a fellow named Ken Snow, was one of the smaller owners of the company, said,
Mhm.
JP, we have to let you go because you made more money this year than the main owner of the company. I said, well, wait a minute. I worked for you for only $3,000, and this was in the mid 70s.
Mhm.
$3,000 is all I was paid a month, but I cut a deal. And 6% of all new sales, not existing sales, but new sales, right? They said, well, JP, that's what got you. They said, because that's 6%. I said, but guys, yeah, well, I made more, but you guys made more too, I
Yeah.
mean, come on. All right. I said, how about you guys give me 10% of the business and I'll pay for it, but I'll have to pay for over a couple of years off whatever I get. They
Right.
said, absolutely not. We met a guy named David Chapman that could do your job for 1/3 the money. So I was gone. I was gone.
Wow.
So then I started, but there's a moral behind the story. I'm gonna get to
Yeah.
that. So then, without even you asking the question, I went in consulting for a couple of years.
Yeah.
If you needed me, I almost ran your company or did a lot of things, and I was 2, 3 weeks behind in even being paid.
Mhm.
If you kind of wanted me there, but you could pay me, I told you everything you needed to know within 3 months. I kind of worked myself out of a job.
Right.
And when I decided, you know what? As a consulting, I'm going to work for myself. And I picked a friend of mine of 9 years, Paul Mitchell, who was a top hairdresser of the day. He held classes on how to do advanced stuff and everything else. And we decided, hey, let's go ahead and borrow some money from somebody. I mean, and get an investor. So
Mhm.
we needed $500,000. And this is now 1979, 1980. We
Wow.
needed $500,000. I could do it on $500,000. So we would give the investor 40% of the company. Paul would keep 30, I would keep 30, and it would be just great. Well, we were all set. I quit everything I was doing, consulting work. Even my relationship wasn't working out. So I left the newer car there and whatever money was necessary there for several months. They were fine. And then I went down the hill to get the money. At this time, it was in Universal City at Bank of America. No money came in. Well, my friend Dick Holthouse found me, who arranged all this, and said, JP, I'm really sorry, but the backer pulled out at the last minute. I'm really sorry. The money was supposed to come last minute. He just pulled out. I said, why did he pull out? He says, JP, it's 1980. In 1980 and 1981 in the United States, inflation was 12.5%.
Yeah.
Unemployment, 10.5%. Interest rates, if you could get a loan, prime rate, 17%. If you get a loan. And we waited in line for gasoline. He said, just no time to start a company. So my partner, Paul Mitchell, flew over from Hawaii with his girlfriend and said he wanted some money. He was a little older and he was almost out of money. No money there. I said, Paul, how much can you afford? He says, $300 is all I have extra. I said, I'll get the other $300. I had a few bucks in my pocket, went to my mom's house, didn't want to tell her how bad things were. And I said, Mom, can I borrow $300? She says, Johnny, why? You know, you've got a nice little house that you live in. You have good money that you make. Why? I said, Mom, starting a new business, it'll all be okay. I was too proud to tell her, Mom, I have no place to live now. I have only a few $100. It was just really, really difficult.
Right.
But she gave it to me. I said, I'll give it back to you, Mom, at the end of the month. When she found out years later what I went through, she was just heartbroken that I'd never told her, because I could have stayed in my own room. No one was in, and she fed me. Just one of those things that happened.
Yeah. Wow. So you get the company started.
Yep.
And I remember 1980. I remember how brutal it was. It really was. And there were I'll bet there were a bunch of companies that were trying to start that the investors pulled out because it just was not a business friendly environment at the time.
That is correct. That is correct. But if I could follow through on how that panned out, okay? One, and how we even did it, okay? How we even started one with $300, amazing. Today, John Paul Mitchell Systems is the world's largest privately owned salon hair care company.
Yeah.
Now, how do you do nothing to something like that? Well, ingenuity and use your own brain a little bit. I was already set up with my vendors. The Setco, who gave me the bottles, the silk screener, the filling facility, they were all set up on 30-day terms, so we would pay within 30 days. So I said, let's just go for it. The only thing we needed money for was the artwork, and the guy wanted $1,000. So I went in and talked to him, and we had a great relationship with my pal, Paul. Paul was a great hairstylist, but not a businessman. I was a businessman, marketing and sales, but I wasn't a professional hairstylist. I was only in the industry, but I learned from the industry, okay? So anyways, we went and told the guy the truth. We only have $700 and a couple $100 to live off of, and can we just give you $300 now and give you the other $700 in a few months? He said, nope. He says, I'll take all $700 now because I'll probably never see the other three, So we gave it to him. We had to have it. Gave it to the silk screener. Instantly, I picked up the phone. I called the bottler guy and I said, instead of the 100,000 bottles we wanted, how about a $10,000 sample order? He goes, sure, of course. Shipped them out, right? Called the silk screener, did the same thing. Called the filler, did the same thing. From the time it got from this bottle maker to the filler, we got it all done within 2 weeks, which was a miracle. But we had orders, so at least I had the supplies there. And then I went hitting the ground like I do with encyclopedias, drove right up Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles, knocking salon to salon to salon to salon to try and get orders. End result was, took me about a week. I got a dozen orders, anywhere from 20 some odd dollars to $130. But I left it blank on top who it was made out to. I needed a distributor, and no money, no advertising, no staff. There was no way I was going to get one, but with those I could. So I went to Paris Ace Beauty Supply, biggest distributor in Los Angeles. Good lesson for people to learn that start new businesses. And those checks in my pocket. So I went in and showed Mr. Jim Hendrietta 3 products, 2 different, very unique shampoos and a leave-in conditioner. They were really good quality. And some friends of mine helped me make them, right? And I showed him our little deal. Here's what we have. Here's a 4th one coming out called Sculpting Lotion. And he looked at me and said, that was a great presentation, but I'm Paris Ace Beauty Supply. JP, we're the biggest there is, okay? And I'd have to take on a line with no sales force, no advertising, no nothing, and build it for you. I just can't do it unless you give me some really great reason. I said, I have just a reason for you, Jim. And I pulled out of my pocket 12 checks, put them right in front of them like that. I said, there's your first 12 customers. They've already paid for the product. Fill your name in there. It's already been done. He said, oh my God, I've never heard a presentation like this.
Yeah.
He said, well, okay, I'll give you a shot. I said, but you better be here tomorrow morning, right? If you or you better be here after the products arrive. Excuse me. You better be here after the products arrive and work with my salesman till you sell it. And we were really hard up. All we wanted was a $2,000 order. That's all we wanted. And he could have exclusive on LA County. We had no money. So he said, okay. I said, but there's one more thing, Jim. And it's this. We really need the money, she could probably tell. He says, could you please pay me when the products are dropped off? He says, we're Parasafe Beauty Supply. We don't pay our bills for 45 days.
Right.
I knew that was coming. So all my prices were marked up 5% more than what I really wanted them for. And I said, how about this? How about I give you immediately a 5% discount? And if you'll pay me in the future within 10 days, I'll continue that 5% discount for a minimum of 6 months, maybe even a year. He laughed his head up and says, okay, I'll give you a chance. Okay. Anyways, he came to our 25th anniversary of John Paul Mitchell Systems as a speaker. He says, so JP leaves. He says, within 5 minutes, there's a call from my warehouse. And the guy's saying, there's some guy in the back here unloading on our loading dock a whole bunch of hair care products and wants a check for $2,000. Jim said, broke out laughing, went back and handed me the check and said, good luck, but be here first thing in the morning. And that's how we going. But I want to go about fate in life.
Yeah.
This took about 2 years, okay? People say, when did you really make it? I said, 2 years from the day we started. Why 2 years? It was the first time in our history we could pay our bills on time. Not pay them off, but pay them on time. And at the same time have $2,000 each left in the bank. And an epiphany came to me. It was like, oh my God, fate really works. If it wasn't for working for Redken, Firmadel, and the Institute of Psychology Tried Products.
Right.
If it wasn't for that, okay, I could have never started Paul Mitchell with all the money in the world. One company taught me distribution. The other one that I headed up with education, let me bring Paul Mitchell back into the United States to do shows and taught me about packaging. The other one told me kind of soup to nuts about how to get packaging inexpensively, where to get it from, where the silk screeners were, and of course, where the distributors were. If I didn't go to all three companies and learn from all three what I really needed, I could have not started John Paul Mitchell Systems even with $10 million and been successful. And I realized there's something called fate because I did well at all of them, but I had to move on. And I wasn't the one that moved on, but something was created that made me move on or get fired. Interesting.
Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com, and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today. Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So if you guys are hurt or you get fired, don't worry about it. Okay. Because you're not firing yourself. It wasn't the perfect job or the perfect experience for you. Something better is going to come along.
Yeah. And that's I think probably the most important lesson we're going to talk about today is don't give up. Don't give up. That's the story of your life. As far as I know it.
Oh yeah.
All you've ever done is just keep going. You just keep one foot in front of the other. Okay, let's pick ourselves back up. Let's go, right? It's hard to be fired.
It is. Let me give you, Mike, a little example of the aftermath of all this, okay?
I'd love it.
Now John Paul Mitchell Systems is about 4 years old and 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old. And we have about 35 people working for us, but we're now in the millions, in the low millions, not high millions, but we're in the millions, right? The head of Rejection came to me and said, John Paul, you're amazing. We're just blown away at what you've done. Could you tell us how we did it? I said, sure, Paul kept me in and John me in. I'll gladly. You were nice to me anyways, even though it didn't work out. Okay. You were nice, but now I have my own company. Okay. So I showed them. They started buying back all their stock, took it private and then sold it to L'Oreal. Wow. The people at Firmadol, Syntex Firmadol, Every one of them was fired within 1 year. The executives, the president, and the vice president, because after I left, little by little, their sales went straight down again.
Yeah.
Okay, and the people from Troy, nice people, okay, came to me, the main owner, and said, "JP, I'd like to give you a big piece of my company free if you'll run it for me." I said, "No, I can't have my own business right now going, but thanks anyways."
Yeah. To see, it all came full circle.
All came full circle, sir.
That's all people need to do is they just need to put one foot in front of the other. I know it's painful. I know it's hard to be fired. It is. Life is sometimes hard. You just have to keep your eye on the ball, right? You just have to keep going forward, and you got to know that your destiny is something that you can go build. You just have to have there's some lumps in the way, right? There's some obstacles you have to overcome.
Even when I was homeless, okay, on more than one occasion, homeless a couple times, even when I was homeless, people say, "Well, what happens when you're that down and out and you're homeless living in your car?" I said, "What you think about?" I said, "The only thing I thought about is where I'm going to eat, where I'm going to get some money." And the first time was Coke bottles and 7-Up bottles and Dad's old-fashioned root beer. In those days, every grocery store and every liquor store had to take them. 2 cents for the little ones and 5 cents for the big ones. So I just went around and collected them, cashed them in, and had something to eat and put some gas in the car with.
Yeah. You just do what you got to do.
Do what you have to do. And if you're down, it's like kind of being down and out. You're so down that if you look up, an ant would crawl over you. I mean, when you're really down, you're down, right? But you have nothing to look at other than going up. Because when you look at, oh, poor me, you're in the past. It's a new life. We used to say in the 60s, today is the first day of the rest of your life, and it always is. You start over again and you go for it.
So let's say somebody's listening to this podcast right now and they're going through a rough time. Maybe they're homeless. Maybe they've been fired. Maybe they've been fired multiple times. What's the single most important piece of advice you would give them?
Believe in yourself. And if you believe in yourself, you're going to make it. And just put your priorities out there. Now that you're homeless, you're down and out. What are your priorities?
Yeah.
Where do I have a place to stay? Where do I eat? Okay. And then how do I get a job? I never forgot my homelessness in Los Angeles. I'm a pretty big supporter in Los Angeles of a group called Chrysalis that takes people off the streets, teaches them how to get a job, where to live, feeds them, and gets all these volunteer clothes. Now, I've been a resident of Austin, Texas for about 25 years. I never forgot what happened to me. I'm one of the largest supporters here of things like Mobile Loaves and Fishes, where we take the homeless, give them a place to live and food to eat, organic gardens. I even built an entrepreneur center. And they said, "Well, JP, these homeless people, an entrepreneur center, they're not going to work. Come on, these are homeless people," right? I said, "That's not true. Just watch."
Yeah.
Within the first year and a half, these so-called homeless people, and they get to keep all the money where they learn how to paint pictures or do jewelry or so many things, aquaculture, all kinds of things in the entrepreneur center. In the first year and a half, they sold almost $200 million worth of things. I mean, 200,000, almost $200,000 worth of things. Of course, you get to keep. One lady was able to buy her first car in her entire life. It was used, never owned a car, and she was 65 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
And then we have the group of people here that I don't know any way to say it other than they're mentally challenged in some area, right? Okay. And so we have a group called TOOF, the Other Ones Foundation. What do? I built their first 50 houses for them, and we're totally set up with people that know how to counsel them, people that know how to work with them and help them get better, and even an employment office, because a lot of them could work. They can't do all the jobs. There's a lot of jobs they can do. So we even put a lot of them back to work again and give them a helping hand. We don't want to give people a hand down. We want to give them a hand up, and that's what we give them a hand up. But there's others we do too, like for food. Here in Austin, Texas, we have, Keep Austin Fed, where this one little lady on her own went around during COVID collecting food from those restaurants that were open, or food banks, or even like the little fast food restaurants that were allowed to be open, or catering services. After 5 o'clock, everything they didn't sell yet, they have to dump, especially Saturday, right? She collected them all and drove around to homeless shelters or drove around to old folks' home to give them these free foods.
What a wonderful woman.
I gave her the money she needed to have an employee, cars. Now they have trucks, which we donated to them. And they have, I think, about 150 volunteers now, plus some full-time people.
That's
So
awesome.
we make a big difference by getting in there and making a difference. And that's exactly what we do. And I'm not the only one that does this. I know there's people out there that do the same thing that I did, that, were down and out, and by God, they never forgot those days, and they helped out the other people. How much have I spent helping out the homeless? Millions of dollars. I didn't really spend that money. I invested that money in the future of our nation and the future of my children and their future. And that's what we do. Success unshared is failure.
And it all started with a dime.
That's right, sir.
It all started with a dime.
Started with a dime. And a mom that said, don't forget, kids. There'll always someone needs it more than you do.
Wow. What a woman.
She was super cool.
So let's talk about the book. Or actually, do you want to talk about anything else before we talk about the book?
No, we talk about the books. I'm sure along the way was how did Patrón start, which
Oh yeah. So how did Patrón start?
Oh, yeah. About 9 years after Paul Mitchell, being in Paul Mitchell, I was making some really good money at that time. And I decided to build a great house on the West Coast for my family to come to, right? Just a great house there. And so that's exactly what I was doing. While I was doing it, my building friend, Mr. Jack Mahoney, said, I have a buddy of mine, Martin. And Martin was in the hospitality business, went bankrupt, and JP's a good guy, deserves a new start. How about he wants to go into the architectural business, buying furniture, because he's a good designer, buying furniture and things of that nature from Mexico, coming up here, selling it to restaurants or to architects for their model homes. Great. I'll be the bank. I'll do it. After 1 year, we're doing okay, but not so good. But we were sitting around my place at that time. I did live in California, and we were sipping some tequila, right? And of course, it was the old type tequila where, you kind of sipped it, did the lemon real fast and the salt.
And the salt,
Yeah, because it wasn't that smooth.
Right.
So I said, next time you go down to Mexico, see what the aristocrats drink. He brought back these 2 thin bottles, and it was very smooth, good tequila. He says, but while I was down there, I met a guy named Francisco Alcaraz that said, I can make it even smoother. I said, Martin, this is pretty smooth. Go down and bring some back. And he did, right? And it was smooth. I said, let's go in the business together. He goes, okay. So he found this bottle, which is the same bottle we use at Patrón now in some gift shop of some sort, right? Ilana, his girlfriend, who wrote a great book called The Patrón Way, wrote our whole story. None of us knew about alcohol. None of us knew about the business. So I highly recommend check out The Patrón Way. And Ilana Edelstein wrote the book. She was there as Martin's girlfriend while we were doing all of this. Anyways, so I said, Martin, go ahead and do it, okay? Here's enough money. Let's get 1,000 cases, which was 12,000 bottles. And let's see what we do with it. It was very expensive to make. So we went out there getting it for a distributor. Nobody would touch us. Nobody. We finally convinced a wine place in Los Angeles to carry it. And I would do their sales meeting for them and go in the field. I said, and we would also get Spago's Restaurant and Baja Cantina, in Marina Del Rey, they'll take us on. So the guy said, okay, we'll give it a try, right? So he bought a little bit from us. After 1 year, and we already knew, I knew Wolfgang Puck, he already tasted it, said, JP, I'll carry it.
I love it.
I bought a canteen and said, oh, I'll carry it easy. So we knew we had those accounts, said, okay. After 1 year, they only sold about 1,000 cases. That was it. We thought they could do better. So this is a very interesting story, okay? So we're learning about the business. We're learning about it as we go. And he'll talk about it also in Success of, he'll talk about it in when the book that comes out and other things that I've done, it talks about how we actually entered an industry like that, knowing nothing about it. Okay. So then we went to Jim Beam, big company, right? We said, well, let's bring in another tier. So we would sell to Jim Beam, they would sell to the other big distributors, like the wines and companies, all those, and in return, would sell to the on and off premises. So after a couple of years with them, they were only doing about 12,000 cases a year. And we knew we could build this company up to, oh my God, maybe 50,000 cases a year eventually. We thought, boy, that'd be our goal. We could do it. So we sat down with them, and they were very, very nice people. They said, we're going to tell you the truth, okay? You have the best tequila ever, but it's too expensive. It's retailing for $37.95, and of course, the average tequila is now a little over $10. I mean, over $5. The more expensive one is maybe $14, $15. Guys, you'll never do more than 20,000 cases a year. So we dropped Jim Beam and went with Seagram's. Seagram's built it after a couple of years up to about 50,000 cases a year. We thought we could do better. So we bought them out of their contract and took it over ourselves. And around that time, shortly thereafter, we had Ed Brown, who was my CEO and president of the company, run it the way it should be run. Long story short, for the company that was never, ever supposed to do more than 20,000 cases a year, because the experts said it. That's how it is. And that's 12 case, right? If you believed them, that we'd stop there, right? We didn't believe them. We believed we had something better. We believed we could do something. When I sold Patrón about 7 years ago, it was the largest sale ever in the industry. Nothing ever came close. It was more than 2 times what the biggest brands ever sold for. It was the biggest in the world. And but we were doing with just Patrón Tequila alone, not our other brand, but just tequila alone, about 3.5 million cases a year of 12. Unheard of. And of course, it sold for many billions of dollars, the highest ever. This is a history it made all the headlines and everything else what happened at the time. So if somebody tells you you've got the best, but you're not going to make more than just a few of sales with that particular product, or tells you anything other than what you believe in, don't fully believe them. Go out there, do it yourself, and you could do much better. And that's what we did. And Success of Unusual People, the book that's coming out, tells the whole story of how we did it, knowing nothing about the industry and what happened from there.
Yeah, you literally set the market, right? Yeah. You literally set the market. Because here you are, $14, right? And you're at $37.50. But you knew you had quality.
Exactly, beyond any question of a doubt. Beyond any question of a doubt.
That's just awesome. I love that story. All right. So speaking of stories, go ahead.
Yes. No, America still works. Just people just got to believe in our country. Yeah. Forget some of the garbage the press would tell us about a year. Things are changing now, and America still works.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And faith works too, right? Faith absolutely does. Well, it absolutely works. And faith without works is dead, right?
Yep, it's real. It's very
that's the honest truth. So, speaking of stories, let's talk about the story behind your newest book. And it's Success Not Shared is Failure, correct?
That is correct. That is it. Exactly. This was a book that I've been wanting to write for a long, long time. I started writing it many years ago, but kind of dropped it. And then just a short time ago, it's been almost 2 years, a dear buddy of mine for many, many years, I decided, let me give him a call and see what he thinks about all this, okay? And that's Mark Victor Hansen. Mark is very philanthropic like I am. I met him the first time, or maybe the second time, in Washington, D.C. during the Horatio Alger Awards, where we give back to people. And he received the Horatio Alger Award the same as I did. By the way, it's the only award given in the Supreme Court of the United States by a Supreme Court justice. But a very giving man and one of the most successful writers of our time. And I told him about it. He said, JP, I want to do your book with you. And boy, he just jumped in with some of his writers and made sure that book came out right. And then I learned how hard it is. It's difficult to read a book and write a book. So we wrote the book, and I've reread it at least 4 times, cover to cover, changing this, changing that. It's difficult reading your own book and trying to make it better or making it okay, and at the same time getting everything together. It's not an easy task, but by gosh, we did it. And I did it so it could be something in there to benefit people. People that want hope, it's in there. People that don't believe in faith and being kind to one another, it's in there. People that have overcome things you wouldn't even believe or want to overcome them, it's in there. And how to start businesses with little to no money or knowing nothing about it, it is in there. But most important, what's in there is I have a wonderful family, I have wonderful friends, and I built what I have. A lot of it is on kindness and respecting other people and loving yourself, loving others, and loving the planet, and having a lot of faith that where you're directed is going to be the right thing to do. And I think all of us, while we're on this planet, in these bodies, until the spirit leaves the body, we have this opportunity to do so much, but also the opportunity to sit back and shut up and just have your eyes open. I say, try and be the observer without judgment, and even judging yourself, because then you move ahead. You're not stuck in the past.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. So I'm talking to my 26 and 24-year-olds the other day, and I told them, I said, I want you to do this. I want you to go to your Word document, right? Microsoft Word. And I want you to type this out. Blank document. At the top, stay in curiosity. At the bottom, stay out of judgment. I want you to
Very
print it in
good.
the largest font you can, and I
Yeah,
want you to put it on the wall right where you work, right in front of you, so
sure.
that every day you have to look at it several times a day, right? That's
That's
the
right.
key to life, I feel, is
It is.
absolutely staying in
It,
curiosity.
it is the key to life. In fact, while you said that, I'll throw one more in that really
Yeah.
helped me out. That's great to teach your kids those things. But another thing I want to throw in, especially with most people go through the same thing. We
Mhm.
have problems in life. We can't pay our bills. We're not getting along with our mate. My car broke down. All these problems in life. What do? I did it for sure when I started Paul Mitchell and other times. Stayed up half the night thinking about it and not going to sleep. Wouldn't let me
Right.
go to sleep. And then I found out how not to do that anymore. And what I did was I took a piece of paper before I went to bed and I wrote down on there the things that are really bugging me.
Mhm.
And while I was sleeping, something else came up that I forgot about. I immediately took it and wrote it down. And then after a while, I was pretty good at getting everything down before I went to bed.
Mhm.
And then I taped it to my bathroom mirror
Mhm.
in big letters because in the morning when we wake up, we go to the bathroom, right?
Mhm.
It's right in front of me. So if I woke up at night, my mind was this. I don't have to think about it. It's on
Mhm.
my bathroom mirror. Go
Right.
back to sleep. I'll think about it in the morning. And
Right.
it's amazing how many of those things aren't there anymore in the morning by the time you come around.
It's a release,
Oh, total release.
right? Your brain can let it go.
Total release. And we have the right to do that. We have the right in life, a God-given right to get everything off our shoulders. One of the things to becoming really clear in your mind is to get off your back. And it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard. Anything that you think about occasionally or will even pop up while I'm talking about this, right?
Mhm.
That is hate, anger, regret. I wish I would have done something differently. Jealousy, anything like that that isn't positive. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and say, that was yesterday's newspaper. You
Mhm.
cannot change yesterday's newspaper. I'm going forward. And every time it comes up, say, no, 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 that's not me anymore. Stay behind. I'm
Right.
going forward in my life. So
Yeah.
maybe how your life will change.
Let it go and make sure you focus
Let
on
it go.
momentum,
So
right?
what you're doing is really cool with your kids. You got some good kids.
No,
They
they're
got
good kids.
to
They're
get that.
really good kids. So let me ask you this. So you write this book with Mark Victor Hansen. I love Mark. I love Mark. I told you this before we hit record, one of his biggest fans. I want people to know what it's like to work with him and his team to write a book. So what was your favorite thing about working with Mark and his team? And what's the single most important thing you learned?
Is this. What they did was this. This is nonfiction. This is a true story.
Yeah.
What they did was they took a true story, but put it into the contents and how to properly show it, how to properly
Yeah.
write about it and do it. And his team members, like Carol's one example. I talk to Carol almost every single week, and this
Mhm.
has been going on for over a year, right? Is they help me organize what I did so it's properly presented. So not
Yeah.
only I could see it, but others could see it and fully understand it and go forward with the message I want to deliver.
Yeah.
And they help me with that. They're unbelievable. I mean, I look forward to picking up the phone. And then they give me the book to read from cover to cover and make changes.
Mhm.
On multiple occasions. I've read the whole book at least 4 times. Okay. And each time they're patient, they work with me, they make suggestions, but it's all 100% real. None of it is fabricated whatsoever. Everything even seems like it's fabricated, it's out. So they can actually deliver a true story, a true biography, but at the same time, it covers faith and spirit. It
Mhm.
covers kindness. It covers entrepreneurship. It covers what to do when you're down and out. It covers what to do when you're in a bind. How the heck you get out of it? What did you do to get out of it? It covers your children, what your children have got out of it, and what you got out of working and traveling with your children and learning from them. It's all in that book. I highly recommend that people not only read it, but when you do get the book, let your children read it. We try to write it simple enough so that people could actually, understand it and read it and benefit by it. That's the whole purpose.
By the way, I love Carol too. I'm one of Carol's
Ooh,
biggest fans.
Carol, it was so
Love
cool.
Carol. Love
She's so
Carol.
cool. Super
So
cool.
so writing this book obviously taught you a lesson. What's the single most important lesson you learned writing this book?
I thought I was a great communicator and could get a message across properly. And there were a lot of things I forgot about to put in the book. They showed me how to do it properly. And I learned from what they did on how to express myself even more properly and explain to people how to do things even easier than I did before.
Right.
And that was a great lesson to learn. And also to remind me of all the great, wonderful things that I did and what a great family I have along the way and great, fabulous friends along the way. This all came out of it, a great experience.
That's awesome. What's the single most important thing that you want the reader to gain from buying your book and reading it?
Be kind. It works. Don't give up. And two of the greatest lessons you could ever learn in business, one we've already talked about that you brought up so wonderfully, and that is overcome rejection. Be ready to receive rejection. If you're ready to receive it and get it, you're not going to stop. You're not going to stop and say, "Oh my God, I'm rejected too much. I better give up. I'm wrong."
Right.
Overcome rejection. That's number one. You can do it, and just overcome. Don't let rejection affect you. The second thing is let your service to your company or the service you're selling or your product that is physical, don't go into the selling business with it. Always go into the reorder business where the quality is so good, they'll want to keep on using it or reorder it again. That's how you focus your life. How's my customer going to benefit? How's my family going to benefit? How are my friends going to benefit? And we take from there.
Yeah. And that reorder mindset builds pipeline, right? You're building a pipeline. You're literally adding to that success. You're just multiplying it. That's got to be a big part of what's made you so successful. Yeah.
Exactly. It's so, example, Paul Mitchell's now over 45 years old, okay?
Yeah.
And our first 3 products, we still sell as good selling products, shampoo 1, shampoo 2, the conditioner, because the quality was there. People kept on using it. Hairdressers realized Paul Mitchell has some really great quality products, not like some other companies that switch their products all the time. 3-4 years are switching out. We have most of the products that we've had for a long time. And we're, by the way, in over 125 countries throughout the world right now, and with a lot of happy hairstylists out there, a lot of happy customers because of it.
So when you look back on this unbelievably amazing career you've had, is there one thing that stands out? To me, it's kindness. To me, it's your conscience. It's the fact that you listen to your heart for all these decades, and you're still doing it today.
Oh yeah, you got it. And because of that, and you'll read about in the book, because of that, I was able to go into North Korea and help them in whatever way I could get into the 4-way talks back in the late 1990s or mid 1996. Because of that and those lessons learned, I was able to go into Libya and convince Gaddafi to release the 2 suspected terrorists of Pan Am Flight 103 with kindness and fun. And that's all in the book, how it was done. Those are just 2 examples of living a life like this. What comes out of it that gives you the clout and the ability and the confidence to pull off things like that and others.
So the book is called Success Not Shared is Failure.
Is failure. That's correct, sir.
John Paul DeJoria, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been an absolute honor. Absolute honor. And I've loved every second of it, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.